My name is Keir Starmer and I'm here to the foundations. When I became your Prime Minister, not only did I get new hair and glasses provided by a donor who now has full access to 10 Downing Street and my bedroom, we were promised three things. Number one, we would be fully costed and fully funded. We're so fully funded and fully costed, we're essentially just like...
Katie Hopkins just obliterated Keir Starmer for being, without question, the most pathetic excuse for a leader Britain has ever seen. 3 million people, yes, 3 million, have begged him to pack his bags and leave Great Britain before he drags it into the abyss. But no, this political anaconda refuses to loosen his grip, squeezing the life out of a nation already gasping for air.
My name is Chancellor Rachel Reeves, ceramic bobhead, hair by Lego, dress by Lord Ali, fresh from Keir Starmer.
Raising taxes wasn't enough for him. Now he's decided to ruin Christmas by banning freezing this Christmas, the one thing bringing a bit of joy to people freezing in their homes. It's almost impressive how Starmer manages to find new ways to alienate his own citizens. Every decision he makes is another nail in his political coffin, yet he still clings on, oblivious to the fact that his own people have had enough. Britain deserves better, but Starmer won't leave until he's utterly broken it.
In other news, Labour have decided to cancel local elections because Reform are going to win all of them. Expect to see a lot of words explaining this and a lot of wiggling and a lot more of Angela Rayner with her terrible pronunciation and her ginger growler. Rawr.
Keir Starmer just got obliterated, no, annihilated, on live TV by Katie Hopkins. And let me tell you, it wasn't just a takedown, it was a verbal execution. She shredded every ounce of credibility the man had left, leaving him looking like a deer caught in the headlights of a bus called accountability. Starmer's leadership is a full-blown disaster, and Hopkins made sure everyone watching knew it. Let's start with the internet meltdown. Over 3 million people signed a petition demanding a general election. Not 3,000, not 300,000, 3 million. That's the population of an entire country telling Starmer to pack his bags and never come back. But, and you can't just brush that off as trolls on the internet, this is the collective scream of a nation that's had enough. Hopkins didn't just stop there though. She rolled out a parody song, Freezing This Christmas, and it wasn't a cute holiday tune. It was a lyrical sledgehammer aimed right at Starmer's failed policies. 1 million downloads later, it's clear that people are tired of singing Silent Night when their homes feel like iceboxes. Now, let's get into the real horror story, the pensioner crisis. Starmer's government thought it was a brilliant idea to slash winter fuel payments while energy bills shot up by 37%.
Elderly people, I will crush you. I will take your bus passes, I will take your heat, and I will take the joy from your life, and you will die early, because the way we can ease the burden on the NHS is by crushing people who don't typically vote for us. And the worst is yet to come. This is Starmageddon. The worst is yet to come. Where are elderly people supposed to get an extra 150 quid or 1,500 or 2,000 or whatever their extra bill is, right? 300 pounds. Where are they supposed to rustle that? What would you like them to do?
So, what does that look like for the elderly who've spent decades building this country? It means they're wearing thermal jackets indoors, huddling under blankets, and staying in bed until noon because turning the heat on is now a luxury. Hopkins painted this bleak reality in full colour, and honestly, it's the stuff of nightmares. 500,000 pensions frozen worldwide, leaving retirees stranded without the financial support they deserve. How do you even begin to justify that? You don't. You just sit there and hope people stop noticing. Spoiler alert, they won't. And let's talk about grocery shopping, shall we? Hopkins shared stories that would make your blood boil. Pensioners walking into supermarkets, picking up food, checking the price, and quietly putting it back because they can't afford it. Let that sink in. These aren't luxuries, we're talking basic necessities. But Starmer's government decided cutting £300 per household in heating allowances was a great move. Because who needs warmth when you can just suffer in silence, right? At this rate, hypothermia isn't a risk, it's practically a government mandate. Oh, but the betrayal doesn't stop there. Remember Starmer's grand promise back in 2019? He and Angela Rayner swore on their political careers that they wouldn't raise taxes on working-class families. Fast forward to now, and those same families are choking under skyrocketing taxes. Inflation is at 11.5%. Yes, double digits. And households are being squeezed so hard, they're practically screaming for mercy.
Says he's prepared to make some unpopular decisions. But beware of this, it's a sleight of hand. Because we can all live with some unpopular decisions. It would be unpopular not to give 11 billion to Africa if you're a massive greenie. It would be unpopular with the doctors if you decided to say, actually, we can't afford to pay you more. You get more when you're a consultant, so just hang in there. It would be unpopular with his Muslim massive if you were to say, do you know what, if you've got more than one wife, we're going to tax you on the number of wives you have. Those things would be unpopular, but maybe they'd be quite reasonable or rational. What he means when he says unpopular is irrational, unreasonable.
For the 2.3 million families relying on benefits, these tax hikes are the difference between surviving and falling off a financial cliff. And while they're struggling, where's the money going? Apparently, £50 million was shipped off to Syria instead of helping pensioners freeze to death a little slower. Priorities, huh? The numbers don't lie, folks. 62% of UK citizens now say their financial situation has tanked under Starmer's leadership. That's not just a poll, that's a neon sign flashing failure in every direction. Hopkins didn't just air these grievances, she dragged Starmer's failures into the spotlight and burned them for everyone to see. Broken promises, relentless betrayals, and a complete inability to prioritise his own citizens. It's a recipe for public outrage, and Hopkins served it up piping hot. Keir Starmer is drowning, and Katie Hopkins just threw him an anchor. First off, Freezing This Christmas. A parody song. A harmless little jingle, right? Wrong. This thing didn't just hit the iTunes charts, it bulldozed its way to number 1, leaving Starmer and his government scrambling to control the fallout. And the BBC? Oh, they went full damage control mode, slapping the song with a ban like it was a national security threat. Seriously, a Christmas parody song had them running for cover. What's next? Outlawing memes? And then there's Jeremy Kyle, who jumped into the chaos like a wrecking ball of truth. He didn't mince words, calling out Starmer's government for what it is, a circus act in a dictatorship costume. According to Kyle, banning the song wasn't just censorship, it was a full-blown attack on free speech. And the irony, this government is so fragile that a cheeky holiday tune feels like a nuclear strike. Meanwhile, Martin Dorney turned the volume up, literally.
Freezing This Christmas by Sir Keir and the Granny Harmers, 79p on iTunes. It is going to be Christmas number 1. It is incredibly awkward for the establishment who don't want to acknowledge it. The BBC won't acknowledge it. They'll try and rig this thing harder than a Strictly Come Dancing competition with a disability contestant and a gropey guy from Wales. But regardless, this is how the British people win, by pure belligerence. And let me tell you, laughter is one of the most powerful weapons that we have. So do go to iTunes, trending.
The guy blasted Freezing This Christmas outside the BBC headquarters, loud enough to make sure even Starmer heard it from his cosy office. If there's one thing Starmer should have learned by now, it's that you can't silence millions of fed-up citizens by hitting the mute button. But let's dig into the heart of this mess, the rotten core of Starmer's so-called leadership. His administration reeks of desperation, clinging to power by silencing dissent instead of solving problems. Censorship isn't just a bad look, it's a flashing neon sign that screams, "I've got no answers." The collusion between his government and mainstream media, it's giving full-blown dystopian vibes. Forget Orwellian novels, even they wouldn't have written a character this inept. The people aren't buying it. 3 million Brits have signed a petition demanding a general election. That's the population of Wales, united in a single demand: Starmer, get out. And what does Starmer do? He ignores it. Leadership? Don't make me laugh. Starmer doesn't lead, he reacts. Housing crisis? He waits until the headlines get too loud. Soaring energy costs? He scrambles for a half-baked solution that barely scratches the surface. It's like watching someone try to fix a leaking dam with duct tape. Here's a number to chew on. 58% of voters think Starmer's government is out of touch. Frankly, I'm surprised it's not higher. The man's so disconnected, he probably thinks inflation is just another buzzword.
is going to send 50 million quid of your money over to vulnerable people over in Syria. You may ask, why would we be sending money to them? Well, their views, which are essentially that women should be covered and mute and there should be Sharia law, aligns very closely with the future voting base for Labour right here in the UK. I would say, why not give 50 quid to each of the 1 million vulnerable British pensioners?
Let's not forget his crusade against free speech, banning figures like Nigel Farage and Lee Anderson from platforms like GB News. Do I agree with everything those guys say? Absolutely not. But banning them? That's not leadership, it's cowardice. Starmer's motto seems to be, if I can't win the argument, I'll just make sure no one hears it. And while he's busy micromanaging dissent, the country's real problems are spiralling out of control. Housing shortages, skyrocketing energy bills, and a tax burden crushing working families. These aren't minor issues. These are full-blown crises. Yet Starmer's priority is censoring songs and silencing critics. It's beyond laughable. It's downright dangerous. Katie Hopkins didn't just critique Starmer. She tore his entire administration to shreds. Her message was clear. The British people are done. They're done with the excuses, done with the censorship, and done with a leader who's more interested in controlling narratives than fixing problems.
We are wondering, when does it stop? And it doesn't look like any time soon. Keir Starmer and his Labour government have just passed something that takes away 300 quid from our elderly that they use to heat their homes. This will kill old people this winter. They will die because of this, and yet every single Labour MP voted for it apart from one, and 50 of the cretins decided to abstain, thinking this would somehow absolve them of their sins. No, it doesn't. If there's one thing worse than being a coward in public, it's being a coward and spineless in private. I spit on all of you, and you can arrest me for that all you want.
Over 40% of voters now openly question the Labour Party's direction under Starmer. That's not a warning sign. It's a full-blown siren. And let's talk about freezing this Christmas one last time. This isn't just a song anymore, it's a rallying cry. It's proof that the truth can't be silenced, no matter how hard Starmer tries. The louder he tries to shut it down, the more people tune in. Hopkins didn't just expose Starmer, she obliterated him. His leadership isn't just failing, it's imploding. And if this is the best Starmer can do, then the British public doesn't just deserve better, they demand it. So, what's Starmer's response to all of this? Silence. Because what can you say when the truth is that loud? Hopkins didn't just roast him, she turned him into ashes, and honestly, he's got no one to blame but himself.